The second design that we will be doing will be an acrylic partial denture for exactly the same class 3. So this will be an acrylic partial denture, and we know that acrylic partial dentures have to be provided in some cases for patients as interim partial dentures, or in many situations in our communities we'll have to provide acrylic partial dentures due to cost restraints. We also use, when we design and construct partial dentures, the same principles are used as for metal partial dentures, because we believe that we must provide support and retention for all our patients. So if we look at it, I have surveyed my model. I have indicated the undercuts that I found. And for an acrylic partial denture, I also know that I can use a 0.5 or a 0.25 undercut on premolars or 0.5 undercut on molars. Find exactly the same steps. We have got our guide planes. The second step is to provide support. Always have to provide support on all dentures. And here again I will use my cingulum rest on my 1-3 and my 2-3. And on my molar abutments I will also have to provide mesial rest, mesial support. Same principle of providing 3 rest for a partial denture. Retention, minimum of 2 clasps, and in this case I'm going to use a stainless steel clasp that will be attached to my acrylic partial denture. And when I use my active arm, I must always remember to put my reciprocation. So in this case, in this 7, I will use a ring clasp as well. So this will be the normal C clasp engaging distal undercut. On this one, because the tooth may be mesially rotated, I will use a ring clasp. And the ring clasp, as in the metal partial denture, will also engage mesial undercut. And the ring clasp is also self-reciprocating. So the mesial arm of the ring will be engaging the undercut, and on the lingual surface, the clasp will provide its own reciprocation. Because of the length of the saddle, I will also use a clasp on the canine, engaging mesial undercut. We also call this far zone undercut because it's the undercut furthest from the saddle. Mesial undercut on this molar will be near zone undercut. Distal undercut on the 1-6 is also called or referred to as far zone undercut. And I have to provide reciprocation, because we cannot have or construct or design a denture if we do not reciprocate the action of the active arms or the active retainers. The next step is again to connect the separate components, and in this case with acrylic I will also choose to relieve the anterior foreteeth. Obviously, when it's in the practical situation, we will have to look at the size of the acrylic. That is one of the negatives of acrylic, that it's a weak material, much weaker than the metal partial denture, and we need to provide adequate bulk for it to be strong, rigid, and not susceptible to fracture. So I'm busy with connecting my components in the partial denture, acrylic partial denture. And if you look at this one, because the ring clasp is self-reciprocating, my acrylic will terminate anterior to my tooth. On the 1-6, I have my acrylic that will form the reciprocating part for the clasp. So in acrylic partial dentures, we always have the acrylic plate providing reciprocation. I must use half round wire rest because it's all attached, and that is how we indicate our half round wire rests. And this is one of the weak areas of the acrylic, is the attachment of the metal, a dissimilar material, so they're all mechanical joints. And this is why acrylic partial dentures or the clasp tend to break off or fracture off acrylic partial dentures. When I provide horizontal stability with my major connector, my palatal plate, and when with acrylic partial dentures, I must also see that I have not added too many metal components. The more metal components we add, the more they can fracture off, because it's acrylic and metal, two dissimilar materials. I look again at my design to see that I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4 rests. I've got my minimum of 1, 2 clasp and an additional clasp because of the size of the saddle. In molars, we can use a 0.5 undercut, and we can instruct the lab to use a 1 mm stainless steel for both the ring clasp as well as the C clasp. In canines, if I had a 0.25 undercut, which will be the wanted undercut, I will instruct the lab to use a 0.9 stainless steel wire. Looking at my design, I will then again instruct and write down my instruction at the bottom for the dental technician, where I have prepared my rest, if I had to build up undercuts, maybe if there were no wanted undercuts, and also looking at the opposing model, whether I have provided adequate clearance for all my rests as well as for my clasp. So this will be a class 3 acrylic partial denture. We carry on